12, we're going to finish this malacha of Dosh. Okay, could we do the dishes on Shabbos? We wash our dishes on Shabbos.
Cold water, yeah.
Okay, so firstly, which dishes could we wash? Which can't we wash?
The ones that you need.
Ones that you need that you'll be using on Shabbos, even if you're not.
Like uncomfortable that they're dirty.
We just soak them.
Mm.
Once they're uncomfortable, you just soak. If it doesn't bother you, you put it away. If it bothers you, you could soak it. But generally, we're speaking about you could do the dishes Friday night, even though you're not going to be using it anymore Friday night. You can use it next day. You're not restricted for which meal you're using it as long as you're going to use it on Shabbos. So those dishes that you're going to be using on Shabbos could be washed on Shabbos. Now, how do we do it? So first thing we said was cold water. If you do have hot water that is prepared from before Shabbos, so it should not be that hot that you'd be able to cook up the food that is the remnants of the food. So you could use pre-cooked water that's not going to be boiling, and you're not going to be using the faucet for hot water, because using the faucet with hot water is going to start the hot water boiler, and you're going to be cooking on Shabbos. So therefore, you cannot use the faucet and use hot water that is cooked up before Shabbos and kli shlishi.
Wait, when you're doing the dishes, you don't use the faucet?
You could use cold water in the faucet.
What
Cold water is fine, not hot water.
What if you turn on the faucet and you don't realize that you turn on the hot, and then you realize it's hot? Like it gets hot?
You don't.
Do you turn it off?
Yes, you turn it off.
You can turn it off?
You turn it off. Okay, so we have now, so we're not cooking the dishes. We're using we're not using the hot water in the faucet, using the cold water. And then what type of, if you want to help with what kind of soap could you use?
Soap or sponge?
Soap, first of all, soap. What kind of soap can you use? Soap on liquid soap, and it should not be very thick. It should not be like a syrup. It should be more like water-like. It should be dissolved. So if it is a very thick, heavy syrup type of soap, you would dilute it before Shabbos. Now, what kind of a help could you use? What can you not use to help you wash the dishes? Okay, what is preferable to use? What is the issue here? What don't we want to do? We don't want to squeeze out water. So anything that retains water, even if it is not a material that normally absorbs water, but it retains water, that would also be included, not to use that for the washing of the dishes. So that which retains, that actually absorbs water would be a sponge, would be a cloth. Those actually absorb the water. So those you cannot use. That would be a Torah prohibition, because you're using it in order to get the water out of the sponge to help you wash the dishes. So that would be forbidden. Now, something that retains water, even though it doesn't absorb water, that would be rabbinically forbidden. And an example would be, you have the close-knitted scrubbies that, even though they are made out of plastic or nylon, but when you put them in the water and you take them out and you squeeze it, water is going to come out because it's a tightly knitted scrubby. However, they make those, it's called the Shabbos scrubbies. And what it means is that the netting is very loose. So when you put it in water and it's made out of an unabsorbent material, that would be the plastic, the nylon. So when you put it in the water, you take it out, the water just flows out. When you squeeze it, nothing comes out. So the ones that when you squeeze do come out, those you cannot use on Shabbos. You could not, another example would be the steel wool that retains water. And with that, we also spoke about something that retains water that does not absorb water. And we spoke about the hair that when your hair is wet, you would not squeeze the hair out to get the water out. What you would do is put a towel on and let the towel absorb, or you could pat it out. You could do it gently, but not to put on a turban and then squeeze the turban or squeeze the hair.
Excuse me, Rabbi. I
Yes,
have a question. So the prohibition is against squeezing, or the prohibition is against something that contains water, or what is the root thing that we're trying to
what you're
avoid?
speaking about is extracting something that's absorbed in another material, in a material.
Okay.
Now, the same would also be with bottle brush. What bottle brush could be used, what could not be used, so it would go along the same principle. So first of all, the bottle brush would have to be of a synthetic material, nylon or plastic. That would be number one. Secondly, what bottle brush could be used, what could not be used, according to what we're speaking now. What would make it possible to be used? What bottle brush could be used? Yes? Which one could be used? Bottle brush, it has bristles coming out, has a handle, and you put it in. Those who usually we use it with baby bottles. Everything gets stuck inside.
Bristles, not a sponge.
No, it has bristles. The bottle, if it's a sponge, you can't use it. We would not use it. But if it has the bristles, so it matters how the bristles are. So if they're spread up out, and you do have the bottle brushes that have either close packed bristles, or you want them spread out. So they do sell both kinds. So for Shabbos, you would choose one that has spread out if you are interested in using bottle brush. Now, now another, yes,
Would it be like, I don't think this is like a technology thing or not, because like, you know how some like things, like you can like turn the thing and then it will like change the intensity? Would it be like permissible to like put it on like a high water pressure to rinse off the dishes?
oh,
Is that
yeah,
not
if it's mechanical, if it's not electrical, then it's fine.
okay.
If you want, you can have a strong nozzle that's going to, well,
So like you
Yeah,
can
really.
just like not have like the food
Yeah,
sitting
right.
out, but like the plates aren't technically clean.
right, yes, that's fine, that's fine. Now,
Sorry,
we have-
Rabbi.
yes,
Sorry, back to the soap. Can you use foam soap on Shabbos?
foam soap on Shabbos is questionable. This is foam.
Foam.
It's
Yeah.
questionable according to Reb Moshe Feinstein, not. So I would have to look into that. You would have to, that would be a technical question because
Okay.
some they say that the foam could not be used because you're forming foam that would be, making something, making something that did not exist before, making it to now a foamy.
Okay, thank you.
Now, we have now something else, and that would be using something to clean. It's questionable. According to Moshe Feinstein, not to use it. Because in Noilad, you're creating now from a liquid, you're making it into a foam, it's changing its form.
What if you're in an emergency, let's say working at the Tzala or hospital?
You'd have to have you have to check with a halachic authority to give you guidelines, and that would not be the only issue. There would be a lot of issues that have to be resolved and what you could and cannot do as a nurse, as a helper. Now we have using the cotton ball to remove makeup. So that would be cotton ball you would use if it's if it does have a liquid in it, then using that would actually be squeezing out the liquid to help you in your cleansing. That cannot be done. So you have the same with also now the definition of wet.
Like put like a liquid thing on the face and just use your fingers?
Yes.
This is like painting because when you have color and when you rub, the color is expiring in your face.
It's coming. I'd like to after class. I will
Okay,
understand what
great.
you're now. So the definition of wet would be, what does wet mean halachically? Anyone have any idea of what halachically would be something that's wet? In other words, we're speaking about a wet cloth,
If you squeeze it and liquid comes out. If it drips.
less than that. Less than that would still be considered wet. What would be less? This is a halachic definition. A halachic definition is kefeach almanas lahatfiach. It's damp enough to transfer the dampness to another object. In other words, if I were to touch this, let's use the when you have these the cleansers of saturated wipes. Okay, wipes.
Like baby wipes?
Right, baby wipes, okay. So when is a baby wipe considered wet that could not be used? Could you touch the baby wipe, and there's wetness that is transferred to the hand? If it's just moist, if something is just moist, that's not considered wet, halachically. Only be if you were able to transfer the wetness to another surface. So if by touching it, it's just moist, but it doesn't transfer the wetness, that's considered dry, halachically, and then it could be used. Now, with the baby wipes, you have the commercial that are sold, usually, when you let it stand, the liquid goes to the bottom. The top ones could be halachically dry because the liquid sort of seeped out and went to the bottom. The lower you get, the more saturated it will be. And therefore, there you will have tefech hamas lahatfiach. When you will touch it, your hand will be wet enough to be able to transfer the wetness to the other hand. Now, what they do is they do have Shabbos wipes. What makes it a Shabbos wipe?
No, so
It is they make it out of a material that's non-absorbent. A non-absorbent material. And therefore, the liquid that is on the baby wipe stays on the surface. It was never absorbed. So halachically,
How does that clean the baby?
because it's wet.
But like, it's not.
It's going to be, I never used it. I never did. I don't know what to tell you. I just know that's the principle behind it. How practical it is, how thorough it does, that I don't know.
So do people not like?
No, what they would do is, they would wash the baby down, either with, and then dry the baby with paper towels.
That's so uncomfy though, for the baby.
What?
Yeah, but you can't use warm water. You're gonna be like, giving.
No,
your
you
baby
could,
like
you
ice
could
cold
take,
bath.
if you have a hot water urn,
Yeah.
you could use the water and make it comfortable to be able to use it to wash the
Wait.
baby.
can
So you could use a very diluted lotion, baby lotion, that that would be helpful to wash the baby. That would be used. So I would have to sort of buy one of these wipes and see how comfortable it is. I'm sure that they make it for commercial use. If it would not be used, it would not sell. So I'm assuming that if they made it properly, that you're actually able to use it. Okay. So that's basically it. When you're using, you may use towels to dry the dishes, but when it becomes so wet that by touching it, you're transferring the wetness to your next hand, you would have to change the towel and use a dry towel. As long as it could still be damp, but it's not transferring the wetness to the other hand, it's considered halachically dry, and you may still use it to wipe the dishes. Okay. We have here with the nursing mother, If it's necessary to pump, to use a pump, a manual pump may be used, and you would have to consult with the halachic authority if there are any issues with what one should be aware of how to use it on Shabbos. The baby could nurse. I mean, that's not an issue in any way. But in case the baby can't nurse and there does have to be expelled, the milk does have to be pumped out from a nursing mother. So then there is halachic guidelines of what may be done. A manual pump may be used, and how to use it if it is needed to give the baby a bottle from that milk. And there's guidelines of how
I gotta discard the milk.
I'm saying, so normally it has to be discarded. But if it is a situation where the baby does not have what to feed the baby, that would be the only means of feeding the baby, then the pump could be used. So if it's a situation where it cannot be done directly, pump could be used, but it would have to be done in a shinoi, as it gives you here the example, using the back of your hand to do the pumping instead of using it in a normal fashion. So, any questions? Okay, so let's now go to next malacha, page 119.
But I have a question. When you, for example, wash your hands
Yes.
and you dry them with a towel,
Yes.
you're introducing water to the towel that's
Okay.
being absorbed in the towel.
Okay, good question. Question is there a problem with drying your hands with a towel? What would be the issue? Drying your wet hands with a towel. So what's the issue that we would be concerned about? Making? Squeezing, if the towel gets very wet and squeezing the water out of the towel, that would be a malacha. What about the fact that the towel gets wet? Is that an issue? Is that a laundering issue? We know when it comes to laundering, we have 3 steps. One is to make the item wet. Second one is to scrub it. The third one is to wring it. So let's look. So we're not wringing the towel, we're not scrubbing the towel, but we are making the towel wet. Is that an issue? Why would that not be an issue?
Well, we're not cleaning it, we're making it dirty.
Okay. In this case, after you use the towel, you're going to wash it because it's considered now you're not cleaning the towel by wiping your hands on it. You're making it dirty. In that case, it's not a malacha. It's only when you let them clean it, then it becomes an issue. But the question is a good question.
So if someone drops water on the floor, like a glass that drops, you can like use a towel and
You could put it up, but
it's really wet.
so then you leave it.
Mm.
If it's not too much water, then you could just throw it down.
But what if it's like blind or like
Mhm.
not, what if it's not water that spills?
So
I'm like, it's like a hazard.
no, it has to be wiped up. Question is, what should you use? If it's a rag, one would use a rag if you have a rag. Now the page 119, we have the next malacha. After the shell of the grain was removed, or after the shell of the plants that are used for coloring dye are removed, you have to now separate the shell from the grain or from the plant. So how is it done? So it's called winnowing. Winnowing means throwing it up in the air where the light, straw, and shell blows away with the wind. So we're using now the wind to clean your mixture. So throwing it up in the air, the wind blows it away. That would be malacha of winnowing. So the Torah prohibition would be if it's something that grows from the ground, and whether it is a natural wind or it is an artificial wind, this would be a part of the malacha. So what would be an artificial wind? A fan. Also, where does one's breath come into? Blowing something away. If you have sometimes eating peanuts, you have the little peanut shell, the little very paper-like. You go. So doing that on Shabbos is the malacha of winnowing. So right. Now the Rabbanon also made restrictions, rabbinic restrictions, that it's something that is similar to the wind blowing it away, where you're actually not using wind at all. And that would be throwing it up in the air and catching it, where the wind is not blowing it away. It's just the fact that you're throwing it up and down. That's what's separating the two. Or throwing it from one hand to the other, where there's no wind involved, but it's just the fact that you're throwing from one hand to the other, the light things would float away. So that could not be done on Shabbos either. What could be done is doing it with one hand. That would be different than one would do it in the weekdays. The Rabbanon did not make restrictions on that.
Is this just outside or this is?
It would be inside the house also. If you're blowing off the shell of blowing off the shell of something, that would be in the house. Now until now, the Torah prohibition would be where you're using the wind to separate wanted and unwanted. You want to have the plant that you want, the shell you don't want. The Rabbanon also included using the wind to take something away, even though you're not separating anything, but it is removing something by the wind. And that would be, even if it's not something that grows from the ground, so throwing confetti from a height where the wind is going to carry the confetti away. Confetti is a little piece of paper. So doing that cannot be done on Shabbos. Taking a tablecloth into the wind, where you want the wind to take away the crumbs, that could not be done on Shabbos. That would be a part of this malacha. Shaking out a tablecloth in the house is not an issue. If you want to shake something over the garbage, that's fine. Also, this
Like
is
just
all,
like that,
this is all
outside?
fine. Outside, you want the wind to carry it away,
Well, if it's like not the one like you're pushing it.
which is fine.
Okay.
That's fine. So if you're outside and you're in the garden where it's a permissible enclosed place, and you want to leave the table, all these things, you're not using the wind to do so, you're doing it manually, so it does not go into this category. That is fine. It's only when you're using the wind to carry something away. And if it's not in the wind, then it is not this malacha. So one of the things is expelling saliva where you want the wind to carry it away could not be done on Shabbos. If you're doing it by the force of your force, where it's not the wind that's doing it, but in other words, you have something in your mouth and you want to expel it. There's no issue with that. It's only if you're deliberately doing it so the wind will carry it away, that's when it becomes an issue. But doing it, that would be the issue that we're speaking about. So expelling something is permissible. It's only doing it specifically that the wind will carry it away. That's when it becomes an issue. And if you're not doing it so the wind to carry it away, then it's fine.
So you're at a Shabbos meal,
Mhm.
they bring out the soup,
Mhm.
it's really hot,
Oh, yeah.
really hot.
Mhm. Yeah, you can blow. You can blow.
on it 'cause
Oh,
you're
yeah,
eating it.
Yeah, you can. No, you can blow it. Blowing the soup is not the malacha.
Mhm.
The blowing itself is not the malacha. It's only when you have the peanuts, you have little shells here, and you're using your breath to carry away the shell.
But what if like?
That's when it's.
part
But
of
if you want to cool your soup, that's fine.
Wait, I always thought that you couldn't
Mhm.
blow.
That's
on the-
fine. That's also fine. It's not the malacha.
I always
Malacha
thought,
is only separating wanted and unwanted by your breath. So blowing the soup is fine.
But the heat is unwanted,
Hmm?
you know?
No, that's fine. That's not. It's only. That's not the. That's not the issue. That's so you can. If you would like to do so, then go right ahead. Just don't blow it into somebody's face. Okay. Now,
I just have to say this changes some things for me because for some reason I thought that you couldn't blow on hot soup, so I would just wait until it gets.
No. You could, if you wish to do so. You may not do so because you're being polite. But other than that, you have your choice to do that. It does not go into any malacha. That it would be so if something is in the soup that you don't like, and you're going to give a giant, a giant breath and it's going to go flying out of the plates, then that cannot be done because that would be this malacha. But I'm assuming that you're not going to do so, so it's fine. So that's fine.
Isn't there something about like using salt? Like you can't salt your soup or you can't salt something?
Okay, that is an issue of cooking. So if it's a klishlishi, so then adding salt or any other flavoring, that would be permissible. It's a cooking issue. So as long as the beverage is not that hot that it would be considered cooking, so therefore we go to klishlishi. If it is the second removed from the urn, your source or your pot, so it would be number one, go into one bowl. Second bowl would be the klishlishi, the third one, and then you can add all the flavoring that you wish. Use of a spray, air freshener, so it is permissible. It is the wind is not causing the spraying. It is just the pressure that is inside the can, so that is permissible. So air freshener may be used if you want to take away a bad smell. Any questions on this?
I have a question.
Mhm.
Can you say like Rishon and then this one and then this one? What is that?
Shlishi, Rishon,
Rishon?
Sheni, and Shlishi.
You have to transfer the salad, for example, first to a bowl
Mhm.
and then to another bowl
Yes.
and then salt
But-
it.
Yes. But if it's not hot to begin with, then it's not an issue. If it's cooled down,
Ah,
if it's cooled down that it's easy, that's comfortable to eat, then they're not cooking it. It's only if it's that hot coming from its source that if you were to add salt at this point, it would cook it up. Then it's an issue. But if it's cooled down, then go right ahead. You don't have to change any bowls.
I have a question.
Mhm.
I think I heard somewhere that you can't like squeeze lemon on like fish.
You could or can't.
You can't. Cause it's like.
Yes or no? You
No,
say
no.
no. Okay, so we've learned in this chapter that you may do so because because it is the lemon is considered a food. Halachically, it's a food. The Rabbanon said that the liquid of the lemon is considered a liquid because that's the way we look at it. And therefore, if you were to use the lemon as a liquid, you might come to do the same with grapes. And if you do so with grapes, it would be a Torah prohibition because grapes and olives are considered separate from the fruit itself. This is wine and this is oil. So those are the two exceptions. But the Rabbanan did make the liquid of all other fruits and vegetables that are normally used for fruits for drinking or as a liquid. They consider that as separate from the fruit itself. However, if you're treating it as a food, then it still considers to be a food. And therefore, if you're going to use it as a flavoring for your fish, then this is now a part of the fish. So you're not using it as a liquid, you're using it as to enhance the fish. Same thing we also said about squeezing it into salad, where it becomes now a food. It's going from the lemon to the salad. It is a food to a food, and if it's being treated as a food, so then it is permissible. What you could not do is not use a special tool to squeeze the lemon, like one of these. No, anything yes to you cannot. It has to be done regular, but not with a special tool. Same thing would be, you cannot use a special tool to squeeze garlic. You have a garlic press. You cannot use that on Shabbos. You cannot use a squeezer.
Why can't we use like a thermal?
It's because it's separating the liquid with a special tool. So you cannot use a special tool for that. It could be done manually, but not with a special tool. So you cannot use a squeezer to squeeze the lemon into the salad, even though it's going straight into the salad, but you're using a special tool for that, that cannot be used.
What about squeezing into the bread?
into water, then it's not, you're not allowed to do so because now you're using it as a liquid. In the water, it becomes a liquid. So making lemonade, that cannot be done, or putting it, or squeezing a lemon into your tea cannot be done because you're using it as a liquid. We did say that squeezing lemon into sugar, so it matters what you're going to do with it. If you're going to eat the sugar,
Like
then it's
plain
fine.
sugar, like just like a white sugar?
Speak about the, let's say cubed sugar, little cubes.
So not like sugar and water, like just like.
We
dry
think about
sugar.
if you
But
do
then
your
you
dry
put the
sugar, if you
sugar
put,
into
you're
it.
right, so that becomes a question, can you or can you not do it? And there are different opinions about that. In Chabad, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe said that we consider it a liquid because since your intention is that it's going to turn into a liquid, in other words, if you're going to be taking the sugar cube that is saturated with lemon and put that in your mouth, you're using it as a food. Some people would take the sugar cube, put it in their mouth, and then sip the liquid that they're drinking with. In other words, you're having a tea, you want to have tea and lemon, you have a sugar cube. So they would they would use the sugar cube instead of putting sugar into the liquid, into the tea, they would use the sugar cube. They still sell sugar cubes, so obviously people still use it. But in Europe, that was the standard way of having tea. They did not use sugar by the spoon, but rather by the cube. Is anyone familiar with sugar cubes and having that with? Does anyone use that? Still use it? Okay, so if you were to take the lemon, if you want to have a flavored tea, you would take the lemon and squeeze it into the sugar cube, and you're using the sugar cube not in the cup, but in your mouth, then that is permissible. Putting it into the cup of then becomes a question
In the sugar cube into a cup
of hot water, yeah. So what you're using is you're dissolving. In other words, this was just a step that you wanted to do. You wanted to get the lemon into this tea, and you were using the sugar cube just to transfer
The
it.
sugar cube's only questionable if it's been like in lemon.
Yeah.
Okay, because like you could make
Right.
like coffee with sugar.
Right.
and
Yes, 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 yes. Again, the cliche where you're not cooking the.
lemon
That's right.
coffee.
Now, oops. So what we are concerned about with the sugar would only be if it is hot. If it's not hot, then again, it's not an issue. It's only if it's hot, so then are we cooking the, so the issue is as follows, just to, we have, when it comes to cooking, I'm just going to mention that we're going to actually cover it when we're going to speak about cooking. And that is, can you rewarm in an unusual way pre-cooked food that is dry?
Yes, what does that mean?
So let's say we have chicken that is dry, and you want to warm it up. So cooking does not apply to the something that has been pre-cooked and dry. You could rewarm it, but it has to be done in a way that it's visible that you are just rewarming it but not cooking it in the first place.
So dry
So-
means if you touch it, it doesn't.
That's correct. It doesn't have a gel on it that is going to transfer your. So the only way you could rewarm it would be not to put it directly in a pot and put the pot on your blech. That cannot be done, but you could put it on top of an existing pot that has a top to it. So you put it on top and just to rewarm it. Use that as your.
You could put
Your
it
base.
on top of like the lid of a crock pot
Mhm.
when the crock pot's on.
Yeah, the crock pot's on, you can still use that. Or you could put it on a radiator. If the radiator is hot in the middle of the winter. If you want to do that, you can do that as well, because that's not the normal way of cooking. Normal way of cooking is not to cook on top of a lid. Normal way of cooking is not to cook on a radiator. So then you may rewarm something that is dry. Now our question is, what happens if it's dry when it starts off, but it's going to be dissolved and turn into a liquid? we consider that a liquid or do we consider that dry? That would be our tea, sugar, coffee.
So it'd be like warmly like a tea bag?
So in all these cases, we would use a kli shlishi. In other words, the second remove from your source of heat.
Okay.
So when you're going to make a coffee, you'll do it with the second cup. Or you put it in the first cup and let it cool down. Okay, so next week we're going to, Hashem start next malacha, which is sorting, which is a very, very involved malacha. I think it's one of the most detailed of all the malachas next to Shabbos, next to cooking. This is very detailed. I would like you to read it beforehand. And so this is from page 123 to 142, telling us how to remove a tea bag from the cup, something fell into your drink, straining water, all these using a slotted spoon, sorting utensils, taking something out of the closet to use for tomorrow, all of these issues. So it's from page 123 through 142. See who I missed in the beginning. Sarah.